Let's take you live to this now. Eskom Group Chief Executive André Ruyter and his management team briefing the media on the current system challenges.
The evacuation infrastructure connecting existing IPPs to the grid, Eskom will expedite that and will enable that capacity to be added to the grid. Eskom has also launched a so-called standard offer for small generators to make bids to Eskom for 3-year contracts. There is some capacity available from private generators, and others are prepared to feed into the grid based on such a standard offer. This was approved by the Eskom board on the 3rd of August last year, and we are awaiting approvals from National Treasury, DMRE and NERSA in order to implement that. And that should also go some way to allow us to add more megawatts to the grid. We are also aware that there are very onerous registration requirements for the so-called embedded or own generation less than 100 megawatts. These requirements are imposed by NERSA. We are aware that NERSA is reconsidering those requirements, and again, it would be very helpful if those requirements would be relieved and relaxed in order to allow the quickest possible addition of new generation capacity to the grid in the shortest possible time. I may just add at this point that we are delighted with the response that Eskom has had to its leasing offer for Mpumalanga land. We saw a very well-attended bidders call. I'm informed that there were some 64 parties on the call, so that indicates very substantial appetite. However, there are some stringent zoning and environmental impact assessment requirements that could delay the addition of that capacity to the grid. And again, it would be very helpful if those requirements were to be relaxed or expedited on an urgent basis. There are also constraints that Eskom faces on procurement. There is a request that is presently under consideration by National Treasury for certain exemptions from the PFMA. Again, these would be very helpful for us to procure spares, but in order to procure spares, we of course need money. And the 47 billion rand that we are owed by delinquent municipalities would be immensely useful for us to be able to relieve some of the liquidity constraints that we face. Just over the past year, we have not been paid an estimated 7.2 billion rand from these municipalities, which would have been very helpful in allowing us to carry out our planned maintenance without having to delay these owing to liquidity constraints. So there are a number of steps that can be taken on an urgent basis by a number of parties. Clearly, stage 4 load shedding is a call to arms to address these issues and to ensure that we can take all the steps that are necessary to bring the system to a much greater degree of reliability. The current performance of the system is disappointing and not acceptable. Again, I can give you the assurance that our generation teams are working very hard, very long hours, under difficult conditions. But within these constraints, we believe that there are some low-hanging fruit that we can implement in order to bring some relief to the system in the shortest possible period of time. At this point in time, I would like to hand over to our Group Executive Generation, Philip Dukashe. I see that he's also on the call. Philip, if you can give us some more color on the performance of individual units and what the outlook is for new capacity to come back online. Philip, please.
Thanks, André. Good morning, everyone. So just to go back a little bit and explain part of the reason why we are finding ourselves in this situation. We've had a very cold, long weekend. We were hoping during this weekend that we are going to be covering and catching up on some of the maintenance that needed to be done. We had communicated last week the number of units that were at risk. It was around 10,000. And we needed to take some units off in order to be able to work on them. But on a consistent basis, the demand was much higher than what the forecast was. And as a result, we were not able to take some of the units out for maintenance. Now, unfortunately, some of them happened to take themselves off. Just to give an indication, for instance, starting on Friday, the demand was about 700 megawatts higher than forecast. And then on Saturday, 1,687. And then on Sunday, 1,200. Now that is significant, and that impacted the planning. As a result, the units that were queuing up for maintenance to be done, we were not able to take off. Some of those units have now unfortunately taken themselves off, number of cube leaks, a number of other plant risks that we are dealing with. And that is the result why we're finding ourselves in this situation. The other thing is the rain, the persistent rain that we have. So we have plans to curb rain, to manage rain, to manage through the risk posed by the rain, particularly in our coal stockyards and so on. But if you're going to have rain persistent for more than 5 days, and even after that, it's not dry, you continue to have some rain, it poses a major issue. So some of our units are impacted by rain. We have to constantly support them using fuel oil. And sometimes we lose combustion as a result of wet coal. So, we've got problems with flowing of coal. So these are things that I think we've managed well in the first bout of rain that we had. But if that rain is consistent, then our ability to manage becomes very difficult. We are still worried about units at risk because we have not really reduced that as we are hoping to do so. We are currently sitting in excess of 11,000 megawatts. So these are units at risk that can give at any stage. We can have failures at any stage. We're trying to nest them, and we're hoping that we will get through. In terms of units coming back, so we have a plan in terms of megawatts and when units will be coming back. And we are hoping to be in a better position by Thursday evening, based on the units that will be coming back over this week. So we will be in a better situation around about Thursday evening, and then Friday. Then we are hoping that we will reassess and see. But we believe that the opportunity to stop load shedding will be there certainly by Thursday evening, Friday morning. That's where I will leave it for now, André. Thanks.
Thank you, Philip. Sikanati, I think it's time for us to go to questions.
Indeed. Thank you, André. Thank you, Philip. You have just, Philip, answered the question that I think is foremost in people's minds. When do we think load shedding can be suspended? And please repeat what you have just said about Thursday or Friday.
So we believe that we'll be in a position to assess on Thursday evening. Obviously, demand tends to drop on Friday. So probably if things improve, we will then assess on Friday morning as to when we should be stopping. At this stage, best case that will be stopping load shedding sometime during Friday. That also depends though on how well we can replenish our reserves, because that is important as we prepare for the start of the next week. We would like to have all our diesel and all our pump storage in a healthy state. Thanks.
Thank you, Philip. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Philip Dugashe. He is the Group Executive for Generation. Now I am going to read your questions, starting with Lamis Omaje from Fin24. Given the outages, is this a new record for unavailable generation capacity? Philip, André, remember yesterday we topped 17,000 megawatts. Is that a record for new unavailable capacity? That's the question. And are we heading for stage 6 load shedding? What is the load shedding outlook for winter? What is the cause of the breakdowns, both new and old? That particular question, I think you have just answered, Philip. Would the flooding and resulting damage in KwaZulu-Natal to infrastructure negatively impact Eskom's access to diesel? Philip, please, can you take those?
Thanks for the questions. No, this is not the highest. This is not a new record for unavailability of generation. We have been close to 18,000 megawatts at some stage. Currently, we are around 15,000 megawatts. So no, this is not the highest. But it always depends on what the demand is on the day. And that is why load shedding would then be introduced in order to balance the supply, the available supply with the demand. The second question is, are we heading for stage 6 load shedding? We do not see that happening in this week. Obviously, one we cannot say for sure where things will be. But in terms of where we are, we do not see that happening this week. As we say, we expect some units coming back tomorrow. We expect some big units also coming back on Thursday. And that will certainly assist us and ensure that we recover from where we are. So at this stage, no, we do not foresee that there will be a need for stage 6 load shedding, at least definitely not this week. Load shedding outlook for winter, it may be if Sekgomoto is connected, maybe he will deal with that. If I can just deal with the last question with the flooding and resulting damage to infrastructure in KZN negatively impact Eskom's access to diesel. Not so much diesel, fuel oil, certainly we are battling and we are not getting enough supply, but we've made plans. We've made contingency plans, so at this stage we are not getting the full supply. On diesel as well, yes, it does have an impact, and our ability to replenish is slightly slower than the norm. But I think contingency plans have been made, so that should not be a major issue to contend with at this stage. Thanks.
Thank you, Philip. Sekgomoto, are you able to give us, please, any update as to the outlook for load shedding during the winter?
Good morning, Sekwanati. Thank you very much. Apologies, I'm not on camera. I'm working off my phone. And so it will be a bit unstable to switch on the camera. We have done the assessment for winter. And I think the big variable is the level of unplanned. We normally look at 3 scenarios. And at the last briefing, I think we did give an indication that if we're able to contain the unplanned below 12,500 megawatts, we should be not have any load shedding. Obviously, today we are struggling to achieve the lower level of unplanned that we desire. And it progressively increases to 37 days for winter. And in the extreme could be as high as, I think we had about 101 days. But that is clearly very far in the extreme. So the main issue is that we have to redouble our efforts to contain the unplanned generation losses. Thank you, Sekwanati.
Thank you, Sekgomoto. Again, ladies and gentlemen, that's Sekgomoto Skiepas. He is head of the transmission division, soon to be National Transmission Company, South Africa. The next question comes from Clyde Melanson. Given that Eskom is not in control of any new procurement, when can we expect a media briefing from the DMRE on what real emergency plans are being put in place to tackle the supply shortfall? Clyde, I will answer that question myself and give a bit of a background as well. The DMRE is the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, and they are not represented in this media briefing. May I humbly request you to direct the question to the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy as to when are they, what are the real emergency plans, and when are they being put into place to tackle the supply shortfall? Colleagues, that question, the Electricity Regulation Act of 2006 requires the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy to conduct the procurement of any new generation capacity. And when Eskom is not being asked to procure any energy, that is being done through the IPP office. Please do direct your questions, Clyde, and everyone else who is interested in that particular question to the DMRE. Thank you. The next question comes from Ryan Brothwell of Business Tech. What is the short-term outlook for load shedding this week? It was originally scheduled to end on Wednesday. Ryan, Philip has now answered that question. I'm going to move to the next one, please. Lungile Msomi is from Tech Central. Will the increased occurrence of load shedding mean that Eskom will push for the introduction of renewable energy? Lungile, Eskom has what it can do internally, and that is to procure, or rather it has leased the land or has made land available in Mpumalanga outside of its power stations for anyone who can get their own customers to lease the land on a 20-year basis. The land will still be owned by Eskom and produce a maximum of 100 megawatts per project. That is what Eskom can do. As to the rest, beyond and above that, please do check with the DMRE or through the IPP office as with the question above. There is Boniswa from Isolezwe newspaper. How many megawatts are the small power generators likely to bring to the system? What challenges does Eskom face when going after municipalities that don't pay on time? André, do you have a forecast on what the IPPs can do insofar as the Eskom project, the RFP that is out now, please?
Thanks, Sugunati. So the RFP has not been issued. We have made inquiries to the market, but as I said, we are waiting for a variety of approvals from National Treasury, NERSA, as well as from DMRE to bring this online. This is about 500 to 600 megawatts, so not huge in the bigger scheme of things. But if you add up all of these initiatives that I alluded to in my introduction, we are looking at 1 or 2 stages of load shedding. And what is critically important, of course, is that the additional capacity will add more headroom for Eskom to carry out the much needed maintenance on its existing coal-fired fleet. So there is a good opportunity here for the market to solve some of the generation capacity shortfalls, provided that we cut the Gordian knot and we move forward with speed to resolving the electricity crisis. On the second one, Monde Bala, our Managing Director of our distribution business, is on the line. Monde, if you would like to talk about municipalities and what we can do to try and recover money from those.
Thanks. Thank you, Andre. I think just to respond to that question, we are doing all in our powers to recover the money from the municipalities. We are actively working with them to ensure that they are in a position to pay us. Needless to say, it has been a big challenge, as André alluded to earlier. There's somewhat 7 billion that we have not been paid for this current financial year. We are working with National Treasury to find a sustainable solution, a structural solution to the challenge of the inability of municipalities to pay us. But we are supporting the municipalities in whatever way that we can to ensure that they are in a position to pay us. Thanks, André.
Thanks very much, Monde. Sikanati, if I can maybe just add one point on renewable energy, which I believe is related to the longer-term future of the electricity supply industry in South Africa. There is, at this point in time, I believe, an important moment for us to pivot from our historical coal-fired base, which is, as we can all see, is quite evident today, not as reliable and as available as it should be, to pivot away from that to low and no carbon forms of electricity generation. As we saw after the announcement at COP26, there are a number of lender countries who are available to provide South Africa and Eskom in particular with concessional financing to enable such a transition to be put in place. This will not only allow us to contribute to significantly reducing the carbon footprint of our electricity industry, but it will also allow us as a country to remain competitive, particularly with the looming imposition of carbon border import duties by the European Union, which are mooted from 2023 onwards. Eskom, therefore, welcomes additional renewable energy to be added to the grid. And it's for exactly that purpose, as Sikanati has mentioned, that we have made available land in Mpumalanga in order to avail grid access to investors on an accelerated basis so that we can get this zero carbon generation capacity on the grid as quickly as possible. Thanks, Sikanati. Back to
you. I would like to bring Monde Bana back, please, onto the camera. Monde, can you tell the people what is the situation with regards to eThekwini municipality, which was hit hard by the floods? Are we load shedding there, and how much power is the municipality able to receive? Thank you. And while on that, Monde, can you say if any other parts of KwaZulu-Natal are working with Eskom with regards to load shedding? Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks, Sikonati. Just on the issue of eThekwini, on average, eThekwini takes about 1,600 megawatts. That's on a normal day. Currently, with the floods, we've seen that reduced to just over 900 megawatts. So which then means that there's about 600 to 700 odd megawatts that is currently on outage. The Eskom teams are working, are supporting the eThekwini municipality to try and restore supply to the affected areas. We are also supporting other parts of eThekwini, Guatiguza to be specific as well, because that's also the second hardest hit area. Just on the load shedding situation around eThekwini is Sikonati, we require just over 600 megawatts for load shedding. So that 600 megawatts is currently what is out. So we've made an arrangement with eThekwini to cushion the blow of load shedding. Obviously now with this change to stage 4, that changes the picture somewhat, but we continue with the discussion with eThekwini to see how best we can support them, specifically during load shedding. As for the rest of KZN, the areas that were affected were mainly eThekwini in the main, going up the coast towards the north coast and also in the south coast. From an Eskom perspective, we have not experienced serious damage to our infrastructure. And as such, then we have availed our teams to support the different municipalities in the main eThekwini to deal with the issues that they are currently dealing with. Thank you, Skonati.
Before you go, Munda, just in summary, eThekwini municipality is currently not being load shed. Am I correct?
That is the current arrangement, Skonati. We are not load shedding eThekwini at the moment because largely because the amount of load that is currently out on outage is almost equal to what would have required from their load shedding sort of blocks. So on the base of that, the arrangement that we've had with eThekwini is that we will not load shed. Thank you.
Thank you, Bele. The next set of questions comes from Terence Creamer of Engineering News. Does the standard offer serve as a replacement for the STPP that could not be concluded? If so, how will Eskom pay for the standard offer contracts? André, please, will you tackle that?
Thanks, Sikonati, and thanks, Terence, for that question. No, the standard offer is not a replacement. As you know, the short-term power purchase program was cancelled. It could not be concluded. But the idea is for us to enter into these standard offer agreements, and through the normal cost recovery agreements, and hence the requirement for concurrence from NERSA, that in fact, if we do buy power under the standard offer, that we are able to recover it in the tariff. If we don't have that assurance, then obviously it would not be in Eskom's interest, and we would be even more out of pocket if we were to enter into these contracts. So we now need Section 34 determination for the standard offer, and then we also require exemption from certain provisions of BBBEE requirements that historically lie. And then we should be able to launch that standard offer to the market, and hopefully we can get that as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, André. The next question comes from Jonisai Warchild Maromo from Independent Newspapers, Independent Online. I want to ask André, with the persistent rains, how bad is it looking for Eskom consumers? The social media discussions about higher blackout stages, are they imminent? Jonisai, allow me to answer those, please. Sekhomoto Skippers has just given us the worst possible outlook for load shedding during the winter. And he said that's at the extreme end at 101 days during this year that we might have load shedding. Let us now leave the social media discussions to social media. I can confirm that Eskom has up to stage 8 load shedding that can be implemented should the need arise. Philip Dugashe has already answered the question about this week, that we do not foresee the possibility of stage 6 load shedding being implemented. I shall move on to Velemseni Mtiane. Practically speaking, what will it take to stop load shedding? As Eskom executives, do you have technical know-how and capacity of what it takes to deal decisively with load shedding?
We're going to come out of this briefing. Group Chief Executive of Eskom, André, the Ruyter, says they're out of pocket. They have liquidity constraints. That's why they're unable to maintain some of the equipment or stations, power stations that they would like to, saying that 47 million rands owed by delinquent municipalities is constraining their work. But there you have it, load shedding level 4, stage 4 continuing until Thursday. We'll have a briefing on Thursday.